Hey everybody, I'm Gareth Lingens and this is Smells Like Teen Spirit. Welcome back to those of you who have been here before, and a very big welcome to each one of you who is joining us for the very first time. In order to build better relationships with teenagers, you need to be intentional. And in order for you to be intentional, you need to have a plan. And so in this video, I'm going to take you through the letter A in the word plan. Be sure to check out my previous two videos on the word plan where I covered the letters P and L. The links to those videos are in the description section below here. As I've done with my previous two letters of the word plan, I'm going to use the characteristics of Jesus and how he spent his time on earth to describe how I've developed my plan to build better relationships with teenagers. So let's jump right into looking at the letter A and what it represents in our plan. We have spoken so much about plan, but one thing that is absolutely critical when it comes to planning is making sure that you act. Do you know that Jesus was a carpenter? No, not in the band The Carpenters. His profession up until the age of 30 was a carpenter. Joseph was a carpenter, and so Jesus was a carpenter. And very often in Jesus' time, sons specifically took on the family businesses, so to speak, of their parents. So the disciples he called that were fishermen were actually fishing with their dad. So does that mean I'm saying you need to leave home or your business? Not at all. Then what am I saying? You see, at some point you're going to have to leave the comfortable place, perhaps work a little early, to spend time with your teenager and act. Cornelius Fitchner said, planning without action is futile, and action without planning is fatal. You can say how important building better relationships with teenagers is. You can learn and watch all the YouTube videos out there, but if you do not set aside the time, which I'll talk about in one of my future videos, hopefully really soon, to put all that you have learned into action, you have wasted more time than you think. When you plan, you must plan to act, and that's the first A. The second thing that Jesus did so well when he was building relationships with people is that he was adaptable. See, there's the second A, adaptability. The one thing you see so often with Jesus' disciples is that they struggled to be adaptable. Now this wasn't one of those moments, but the wine runs out at a wedding. His disciples weren't involved. It's causing panic for everyone else, especially the host. No problem for Jesus. The disciples realize it's late and they don't have food. There's thousands of people. There's no food to feed all these people. They need food and they panicked. There was a storm and they panicked. They thought they were going to die. But Jesus adapted to the situation every time in a cool, calm, collected way that only Jesus could. When there was no wine, he was like, go and fetch those jars and fill them up with water. And he turns water into wine. There was no food, and the disciples didn't have a 24-hour McDonald's to go to and get 500 share boxes. Jesus gets 2 fish, 5 loaves, and feeds 5,000 people. No problem. Jesus was trying to show his disciples how to deal with difficult situations. You need to remain cool and calm and use the resources around you, the resources you have, to perform miracles. Well, not us, of course, because we can't perform miracles. But adaptability is about using the resources around you to turn a potentially horrible situation into something good or positive. You might at this point be saying, hey, Mr. Preacher, Pastor Dude, come down from your pulpit and tell us how you did it. Okay, you got me there. Oh no, I'm just kidding. Now bear in mind that I cannot give all sorts of situations in which you might need to be adaptable, because that's just not how adaptability works, because you're going to have to navigate those for yourself. But this is a very current one for me, coronavirus or COVID-19, the biggest pain in the backside virus ever. Sorry, I know just the thought of that time is traumatic for some of you, but it was one of the most creative and productive times of my life. Sorry, let me get to the point here. Due to school closures, we took our entire learning program onto Microsoft Teams. Now, because of this, it created a very difficult situation where we had zero face-to-face in the classroom interaction with our kids. A problem. And for some kids, not going to school was a massive emotional problem. Because we adapted to Microsoft Teams, I've been able to connect with, encourage, mentor, listen to some teenagers that I have probably or would never have probably connected with outside of the class. The seemingly disastrous schooling problem has allowed me to use a resource like MS Teams to continue connecting with and building positive relationships with teenagers. I have adapted to the situation. No miracles needed, just opportunities. The third thing that the A represents is acceptance. Jesus was the most accepting human being to have ever walked the planet. It didn't matter who you are and what you did. If you encountered Jesus, he was never going to turn you away. But what was also important is that whenever someone encountered Jesus, their lives would never be the same again. For the most part, an encounter with Jesus meant you were better off or even changed for the good because of your experience with him. So often when I'm walking back to the staff room after school from my class, I carefully observe what teenagers are doing and saying, and who they're hanging around with. But every time I'm left with the same thought: it's tough being a teenager. It's hard being a teenager, and I'm so glad that I am not one anymore. Now, what's very important to remember here is that one of the biggest things teenagers are trying to do is find their fit. That's what I'm looking at when I'm finished teaching for the day. They're always trying to find a place to fit in, and it is sometimes very scary at what lengths they will go to find a place or a group of people that will accept them for who they are. One of the things that stood out for me from the letter I received from someone, when I asked them what I had done that's made a positive impact in their lives, and they said this: he, Gareth, loved everyone and accepted them genuinely and completely. So a few quick examples of this in my life. Teenagers at the church where I was youth pastor, when they were ready to and wanted to, had to sign up for confirmation classes. But every now and then, they would want to bring a friend along. Somehow, that posed a problem for them in their minds. It wasn't a problem for me. My response was always, pull in! It was kind of my motto when I worked at the church. Pull in! Because anyone and everyone is welcome. Second example was that there was a student one year that swore at a colleague and friend of mine. Over the years, I got to know the student a little bit better. He turned his life around in quite a remarkable way. The turnaround was so remarkable, in fact, that it didn't matter what he said or did to my colleague, because he sang at our wedding service and reception when my wife and I got married. And do you know that when we see him, he calls us mom and dad? You see, people can change. People do need second chances. And most importantly, if they are accepted for who they are, genuinely and completely, you could end up making a much bigger difference in their lives than you ever will have imagined. I've encountered all sorts of teenagers over the 20 years. But one thing I always keep in mind is that it's damn hard being a teenager. And all they really want is to find a place where they are accepted genuinely and completely without any judgment. And that's it, the 3 A's for the letter A in the word plan. Stay tuned for a bonus tip just after this. If you have not done so already, please subscribe to my channel so that you can receive notifications when I release new videos. If you have found this video helpful, please like it by giving a thumbs up. And if you think someone can benefit from what I've shared, please share it with them too. And here's my bonus tip. Whatever you do with teenagers, make sure you do it with the right attitude. There's another A. Firstly, an attitude of wanting to be there with them at that time. If you don't want to be there, then don't. Secondly, have an attitude of non-judgment. And thirdly, develop an attitude that shows you really care and that you are available to talk to or come to for help anytime. Like I said, There's another A. I'll leave you with some questions in the description section below to think about that you perhaps can share some answers to in the comment section below. And thanks again for watching, and until next time, start getting excited to spring into action to build better relationships with teenagers. Cheers.